and a significant amount of time, 4 to 5 years, to wing those guys. We need to make sure that we're taking care of those people as well. So we spent a lot of time last Congress on quality of life issues, but let's not forget them. They're an elite fighting force. Let's treat them as such. I want to talk a lot more about Hampton Roads, just the maritime industrial base that's there. I know that's an important part of this, the National Defense Strategy. So what are your plans? Again, just prioritizing the East Coast and our role there. We have shipbuilding, we have ship repair, but what steps is the department taking to reduce acquisition and contracting delays that are slowing this ship repair and construction?
Well, thank you, ma'am. This is obviously not so much in the policy lane, but I can say from the leadership of the department and from the president, we are working very, very hard to try to get better output from our defense industry and reduce red tape in the Department of War, including, for instance, on FMS reform that's happened that we were all part of. But I think the frustration about that is felt throughout the administration, and a real urgency to try to rectify the problem.
We have the resources there in Hampton Roads. It's all under one umbrella. So please don't forget about that when making those policy decisions. And I know that, the USS Ford is currently on a deployment that it could extend even up to not 10, 11 months. So I just want to know if you have any insight into what the Navy, when they're extending deployments like this, because current carrier force levels are insufficient to meet global demand signals, what risks do longer deployments pose to these readiness, maintenance cycles, and sailor retention?
Ma'am, I defer on that to the Navy and the Joint Staff, but I think we're very conscious on honoring and supporting our warfighters, and also making sure that our forces are ready.
How often do you get to sit down with Navy leadership? Because it sounds like you're not communicating with them a lot.
Pretty frequently, but more on sort of strategic issues. Again, just to reiterate, I sort of know my role and what my role is, and I'm not the one trying to tell the Navy how to do their business, but I've sat down with Admiral Cottle and Secretary Phelan on a range of strategic guidance documents, on the AUKUS review, and a number of other issues. But I'm not trying to tell them how to manage, the aircraft carrier readiness schedule and that sort of thing.
Can I ask who is the one trying to tell the Navy how to do their business?
I don't know.
Okay, I'd like that name, please, when you get a chance. Switching gears a little bit, in my last remaining seconds, talk about munitions capacity and Ukraine support. The war in Ukraine, Operation Epic Fury in Iran have drawn heavily on U.S. precision munitions and air defense interceptors. Has the department increased production of key munitions such as artillery shells, air defense interceptors, and long-range missiles over the past year?
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I apologize.
Has the Department of War increased production of key munitions such as artillery shells, air defense interceptors, and long-range missiles over the past year? I'm worried about.
I'd have to get you specific figures, ma'am, but we certainly are moving very much in the right direction. I'm confident that we're going to continue acceleration.
My time has expired. I'll yield back.
Chair, now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Morning, Mr. Colby. I want to start with a quote. Quote, from a military perspective, the focus really needs to be tightly on the Pacific, especially the first island chain in Taiwan. Does that ring a bell?
Rings a bell, sir.
That was you. Quote, some believe that Washington can conduct a major military effort in the Middle East and maintain its advantage in Asia. That's a self-comforting delusion. Quote, does that ring a bell?
I defer to you, sir. Where the source?
That was you, Mr. Colby. Quote, does the USA want to be the policeman of the Middle East, getting nothing but spending precious lives and trillions of dollars? Do we want to be there forever? Does that ring a bell?
I defer to you on the sourcing, sir.
That was actually President Trump in his first term. How about this one? Quote, we simply cannot afford to get enmeshed in a large Middle East war. That one?
I defer to you, sir.
That was actually you, Mr. Colby. One more time, quote, our interest, I think, very much is in not going to war with Iran. It would be a huge distraction of resources. It would be massively expensive to our country. That one?
Defer to you, sir.
That's the Vice President, Mr. Vance, in October of 2024. Last one. Quote, an intervention would not only cost American lives, but also consume vast munitions and equipment and distract American readiness from Asia, harming U.S. capacity to deter China. That one?
I defer to you on sourcing, sir.
And I'm not trying to play gotcha. I'm trying to understand a massive inconsistency in what you've said and others in the administration. That was actually from a piece that you wrote. I'll put the title up just to help recall. think it's pretty straightforward, and I remember reading it and largely agreeing with it at the time. The subhead of the piece, the title, "Don't Let Iran Distract from China," the subhead, "Beijing's bid to dominate Asia is a far greater threat than anything Tehran can do in the Middle East." Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter this article from the Wall Street Journal, by the way, into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Colby, my question is, do you still believe this?
Excuse me. So I don't think we are going to be distracted. We're very conscious of this, the strategy and the efforts of the department, including 1.5
Not the
trillion.
distraction piece. I mean, you're very clear that it's a mistake, that there's a far greater threat.
So I don't think the current operations are a mistake. I think we are scoping the military objectives in light of the overall strategy under the president's direction. They are reasonable and attainable military objectives.
In the interest of time, I think any reasonable observer would say there's a massive inconsistency in what you've said for years, and frankly, dedicate a lot of your personal career to before this position versus what you're doing now. So the question is, were you wrong then, or are you wrong now?
I don't agree with your characterization, sir.
That's fine. And to bring it to the present moment, as many of my colleagues have quoted, the National Defense Strategy, which you wrote, or helped lead anyway, which was signed by the Secretary of Defense, which was approved by the President, begins with a line that, for good reason, has been repeated many times today, and I'll repeat it again on the record. No longer will the department be distracted by interventionism, endless wars, regime change, and nation building. In case that wasn't crystal clear, in October 2024, then candidate Trump said, quote, "You're not going to have a war with me." In case that wasn't clear, in his victory speech on election night, he said, quote, "I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars." My constituents, the American people, everybody watching this, how could we consider that anything but just a straight up betrayal of promises made and a lack of any strategic coherence? I frankly think, and I don't use this word lightly, I think you are lying to the American people about it. I think the Vice President has lied about it. The President is lying about it. And to bring it into stark relief is these 6 brave patriots that we lost. And don't you think we at least owe them and their tremendous sacrifice, which our nation is grateful for, just being honest? And you came in here and 3 or 4 times, at least when I was in the room, going out of your way to say, "I'm a loyal lieutenant to the President." And I know you're exhausted because I don't think you actually agree with a lot of what he's doing. So I'm going to give you a chance to at least say that.
Well, I fully reject your characterization, sir, and I am being honest, and I think this is, this administration is going to be prepared for peace through strength, and that's what the President's talked about.
Gentleman,
has
time
delivered
expired.
peace.
Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually going to help explain this to one of my peers here as we do this hearing, because I think I know where you're going with this. And it's just, with the statements you've made, I know what you're talking about when you talk about getting involved in Iran in a forever war. Would you consider this a forever war?
No, sir.
In some ways, I would say we've been at war with them for about 50 years. We've been attacked over 40 times through their proxies and their weaponry. We've had Georgians recently killed by their weaponry. He just talked about, my friend from the other side of the aisle just talked about the 6 lives we lost. We lost over 200 Marines in one day from Iranian proxies. Some of them are my friends. I have a buddy of mine who was blown out of a window that day, who I played rugby with for many years. He'll never forget that. We don't forget. The fact is, the Biden administration and the Obama administration have both given them money, billions of dollars, and allowed them to have access to billions of dollars that have funded terrorism throughout the Middle East and the world. And quite frankly, they were nearing the precipice of nuclear arms. And then on top of that, they were able to produce about 100 advanced weaponry platforms as we opposed them with about 7 during the same time frame of about a month. They're outproducing us with something much cheaper too. Would you say that that new information, that new technology has kind of also changed our foreign policy in that region, knowing that Iran now has become disproportionately more powerful and more of a threat to the United States and the entire world in its stability?
Well, thanks, Congressman. I would say you're right, absolutely right, and agreed to put your finger on the reconstitution of Iran's missile and drone capability and so forth, and the balance between Iran has been at a weaker point after Operation Midnight Hammer and the 12-day war, but we could see, as the Secretary pointed out the other day, that Iran was going to build up a conventional shield from which it could then seek to again resume its nuclear ambitions. So this was the time to take action in a way that's consistent with the strategy, which is, of course, with Israel, with our Gulf partners. Now we're seeing partners from around the world in a way that was scoped and attainable military objectives. Those are the objectives of the campaign. And so I think that's why it's going to be, and it's not going to be a forever war. It's not going to be a nation-building effort, as the President and the Secretary have made clear.
I think that's the take-home for me, is that when you show strength, when you develop relationships with other nations, the Abraham Accords, and seeing the other countries in that region that traditionally were not friendly to us historically. When I was there in the 90s, I was stationed in the Persian Gulf and deployed there several times. We didn't have the relationship we have now. This huge advancement was made through the first